Hi, my name is Jessica Iglesias, and for my senior capstone proposal, the project name is Moderating Violent Video Gameplay. Again, my name is Jessica Iglesias. I'm a four-year student at the University of Hawaii at West Oahu. I graduated from Kapolei High School. I'm currently in the Creative Media Bachelor's program with a concentration in video game design and development. So some things that I'll be going over are plans for a senior capstone project, my thesis statement, the objective and rationale of the research conducted, and I'll address the significance of my proposed project with my research. So for my thesis statement, it's the growing prevalence of violent content in video games has raised concerns about its impact on the behavior and attitudes of players and the potential long-term effects on individuals and society, making it's essential to understand the extent to which exposure to violent video games affects players' behavior and attitudes and its potential long-term consequences. So for my objective for the research conducted, it's to create a solution that would help prevent or decrease the effects that players are at risk from being repeatedly exposed to violent content in video games. So these effects are things such as increased aggressive behavior, desensitization, lack of empathy, lack of prosocial behavior. And so for my senior capstone plans, at the end of the semester, I plan on delivering a project, which would be a video game with some violent content in it. However, this video game would have an auto intermission that would limit how long a player would be able to play. And for the significance, a study was conducted to see if there was a link between a violent video game and aggressive behavior, aggressive cognition. And the results showed that exposure to violent video games was significantly related to higher levels of aggressive behavior. It also showed that playing violent video games can increase aggression over time. Some future implications are playing violent video games could transfer over to other unrelated events and not just while playing video games. It also suggests that children might be more susceptible than young adults to violent video game effects. And for the second one, moderating violent video gameplay through monitoring screen time is an effective way of preventing long hours of gameplay and exposure to violent content in video games. So some implications are that moderation of violent gameplay were more effective on long term, with 6% of parents seeing a decline in aggressiveness and hostility in their children. So here's one data of, more than 90% of American youths play video games, and more than 90% of games that are E10 plus rated, teen rated, or mature rated contain depictions of violence, and that violence is often portrayed as justified, fun, and without negative consequences. And for this data, so this is the study that I spoke about earlier regarding exposure to violent video games causing an increase or having a relationship in the increase of aggressive behavior. So it shows that the importance of the table is that the longitudinal effect shows that players who play violent video games can increase their aggression over time. And so for my target audience, it would be young children and teenagers between the ages of 5 and 18 years old. And I did this based off of the data of more than 90% of American youth play video games. So for my proposed solution, video games that have an auto intermission can help decrease the risk of these potential effects by moderating how long a player is able to play, which would lessen the amount of exposure towards an individual. And so for my preparation and process, for pre-production, I plan on doing research on scripts and codes in Unity that would allow me to implement an auto intermission in a video game, as well as gameplay and game mechanics. For production, I would be creating a level design and assets such as character design, interactable objects, items and objects or NPCs, and applying these along with coding in Unity to create a working video game. And then post-production would be releasing the video game and having others try it out and receiving feedback. So for my deliverable, this is just an example, but it would be a boxing game in which the player would have probably about 3 to 6 opponents, and each opponent would have would last 3 rounds. So one opponent would be 1 level, but after the player defeats the first opponent, they would have to wait until the following day in order to access the next level. So that's where the auto intermission comes in. And so there's an example from another game that does something similar. So in Genshin Impact, they have events with different levels. So if you can see, it says temperature contrast supplement. So that's the first level. So it's always accessible. And then the following level underneath, Thunder Pill Trial, it says underneath that unlocks in 1 day. So this would sort of limit how long the player would be able to play for. Thank you. And was there any other questions?